Book TV recently visited Capitol Hill to ask members of Congress what they're reading this summer.
Well, first of all, thanks to C-SPAN for all you do on this front. It's a very important service you give to the country. And my folks are watching this. My kids will get a kick out of it. I hope they see their picture behind me. But I got a pretty extensive reading list coming up, not only for the summer, but over the next year. I thought I'd start off with a recommendation for folks to Prayer for People Under Pressure by Jonathan Aiken, written by a former member of the English Parliament. And so I think he knows a little bit about pressure, and I thought I could learn a little something from him. Second new one, Troublesome Young Men by Lynn Olson, has to do with the rise of a small band of conservatives in the Parliament during the Churchill period, and kind of motivated by, I'm a member of the House Freedom Caucus. We have 40 or 50 great folks that are trying to get the country back on straight, solve some of the fiscal problems, and just kind of represent the people more closely, do what the people want to do. And so I think this book will give me a little motivation there. Next one, the title may not give it away, but it's called Uncivilization by Gregory Copley. He came in and briefed me on foreign policy one day, and just an amazing mind on foreign policy. And I learned so much from him, I wanted to read some of his books. So his subtitle is Urban Geopolitics in a Time of Chaos. And so maybe at first blush an unlikely source of grounding for international policy, but his thesis is that some of the uncertainty and instability and chaos we're seeing around the globe, which we are clearly seeing, is driven by the urban-rural split in our country. And just kind of with the growth of the urban cities, a little bit more detachment from the Jeffersonian yeoman farmer, and love of country, patriotism, nationalism in the positive sense, and that maybe we need a little bigger dose of history in our K-12 and some of those themes. I haven't finished the book. I've started reading about it and a little of it. Next one, The Desire of Nations by Oliver O'Donovan, was highly recommended to me on political theology. Obviously, that's probably the issue of our day now with ISIS and the debate over our Constitution, the role of the Judeo-Christian tradition, how does Islam fit into this conversation? And so The Desire of Nations traces through the history of thought. I think most of you probably know Islam, the Jewish tradition, and Christianity. We all used to have a nice conversation around Aristotle about 1300. And so the conversation is possible, but it requires some unity of thought. And so Aristotle is one nice place to be. There's plenty others. I'll probably mention a few coming up. And I think we need to urge some of our brothers and sisters over in the hot spots that a reformation might not be a bad idea, and enlightenment would certainly be a good idea. And so those are probably some of the themes I'll be reading about in that book. Next one, more contemporary, Extortion by Peter Schweitzer. It's been around a while. I read it a few years back. But I'm going to give it another look. Why are the politics broken? Everyone back home seems to think there's this left-wing, right-wing war going on between the parties and the factions and the right-wingers and left-wingers. I talked to Bernie Sanders at a White House Christmas party, and he shared my view that that's not the case. Right? Most of the case has to do with maybe the middle and doling out $4 trillion to the insiders and cronies up here in D.C. And that, I think, is a little stronger explanation for why the politics is broken. And so I think Schweitzer pursues that pretty well. Money correlated with elections, correlated with committee assignments, correlated with everything up here, voting records, et cetera. And he traces them all out with footnotes and evidence on that. The next one is a shameless plug. It's called American Underdog by a congressman named David Brat, B-R-A-T, available June 28th. So I'm plugging my own stuff. It's wide-ranging. I had a friend help me put it together, but I sent him previous books I'd put together, lecture notes over 20 years when I taught economics and ethics at Randolph-Macon. And basic thesis, I ran on the Republican Creed in Virginia. It's basically American themes. But since then, I went a little 30,000 foot up in the air and condensed it to the three pillars that have made our civilization the greatest, I think, the greatest country on earth. The three pillars that hold up the foundation, and they include, not surprisingly, the Judeo-Christian tradition. I went to Princeton Seminary before I did economics. And Madison, of course, went to College of New Jersey, roughly the Princeton Seminary, and studied Hebrew for kicks when he was done. And the Judeo-Christian tradition leads into the second pillar, the rule of law. And then we get in 1776 also, right, I don't know if by divine intervention or not, you can make up your own mind on that one, but Adam Smith, the founder of free market economics, across the pond in England, Scotland, doing economics and ethics as well, right? He was a chair of moral philosophy. And so a lot of great thinkers weaving together religion, philosophy, economics, political theology, political philosophy in the past. Not so many doing it today. And so that's kind of why these books inform my reading list. Next one was given to me by a four-star general up here a few weeks ago, Combat Ready by Thomas Hansen. By all accounts, our military's Army, Navy, Air Force, weakest level since post-World War II in terms of troops, ships, planes, etc. And so it's an analysis of combat readiness, and so I recommend that one highly based on what I heard about already. Next one, How God Became King by N.T. Wright, New Testament scholar of note. Again, political theology, political philosophy, how God became king, not necessarily what you might think at first blush. Maybe kind of a David and Goliath, Malcolm Gladwell explanation that the king in this case is a humble king. Next one by a sociologist, The Triumph of Christianity. Again, not a boastful triumph, but a triumph of, if you look at the countries who have strong civil liberties, strong civil rights, political rights, women in the workforce, protections of all sorts, Christianity, the Reformation, the Enlightenment, again, basic themes I want to explore a little more deeply, and Stark's one of the leaders in that field. And then a whopper, kind of a 3-inch biography, George Washington. I'm going to try to make my way through, called Sacred Fire by Jerry Newcomb and Peter Lilback. It was given to me as a gift about a year ago after I entered office, and I'm going to do my best on that one. And Washington is just kind of one of those amazing figures. When you read about him and what others say about him, all men and women loved him and respected him. And so there's something to this guy that is extra particular, extra significant, and the more I read about him, the more I see that, but can never get enough of seeing what resonates with such an important founder, and some argue the founder, the indispensable man, the one to whom all the others looked up and loved and respected. And so it's good to take notes on people like that. And so that is a hefty reading list. And again, I thank C-SPAN for letting me have the opportunity to share a few books that I'm going to take a peek at. And my constituents know I go around actually talking about this stuff at our meetings around the 10 counties. And most people get stimulated by this kind of intellectual exchange. I sure do. And so thank you, C-SPAN, for all you do. And happy reading. Thank you.
Book TV wants to know what you're reading this summer. Tweet us your answer at BookTV. Or you can post it on our Facebook page, facebook.com/booktv.